You're listening to Leadership Podcast, a series of short, insightful discussions with experts in the field of volunteer leadership. Brought to you by the ARIA Center for Leadership Development. Your interviewer is Elaine LaChapelle.
Well, we're here at the ARIA Leadership Conference, and I'm delighted to have with me Erin Roberts. Erin is a partner at Zeem. She is an accomplished speaker, facilitator, management consultant, and she especially works with not-for-profits. As well, she's had the opportunity to work with quite a number of our real estate associations on improvement initiatives at their level, and so we're delighted to have her here today. And today's topic is high performance membership organization. Hi, Erin. Maybe you could start by telling us what you're referring to when you talk about a high performance membership organization.
Well, about half a dozen years ago, when we were doing consulting work, we had a lot of people asking us, well, what's the benchmark? Where should I be in each of these areas, and what are the areas that I should be focusing on? So we worked with some practitioners out there, particularly one CEO who is a fellow by the name of Jim Quick, and he was then with the Canadian Paint and Coatings Association, and he'd been having the same challenge doing his CEO work. So what we did was we developed a model, and we figured out what are the 8 elements of performance for a membership organization. This is purely for membership organizations. They've got their own business model, they're their own thing. And it has a backstage and it has a front stage. And there's 5 elements to the backstage and 3 elements to the front stage. And what the model is, it's the standard of best practices for each of these elements. And it's everything from human resources all the way through to member value proposition.
So just tell me, what's a backstage and what's a front stage?
Well, the backstage is what you don't see unless it's screwed up. For example, this event. Nobody wants to see what's going on behind the scenes. At a wedding, you don't want to see whether the cooks dropped something in the soup. The backstage is what you don't see when it's running flawlessly. And when it's not running flawlessly and you start to see it, that's when you know you've got problems.
So why do you feel it's so important for organizations to adopt this high performance model?
What we found was that once we tore things into these 8 elements and started looking at them one piece at a time, and maybe it's just because I'm more of a process person, but I found it made it a lot clearer what we needed to do. We look at human resources, we look at planning, we look at governance, we look at resource management, we look at revenue diversification. We picked out all the things that are really critical to membership organizations, at least in this environment. And we figured out how to measure how they're doing in each of those 8 categories. And what we usually find is people are doing well in some categories, not so well in other categories. And by stripping this down to the 8 elements and having us look at each one individually, often you'll find that something's going wrong in maybe just one element, but it's having an impact on all of the other 7. And once you isolate it and start looking at it, all of a sudden you say, aha, it didn't have to be that difficult, it's that one thing.
It's that thing. And is this benchmarking against other associations when you say they're doing well or not so well? Against what measure?
Well, that's a really good point. It's actually 2 things, because when you do a high performance assessment in each of these 8 elements, you're striving to get to the high performance level in all 8. Of course, most of us aren't going to get there. What the high performance assessment does is it tells us where we want to be in all 8. But then by going around and doing a number of these with other organizations, I can now sit down with somebody and say, well, here's where you want to be at the high performance level. Now, in reality, here's what I'm seeing out there. Here's where people are tending to be doing quite well and other areas not so well.
So where do you see organizations, say, in 5 to 10 years? And how does this high performance membership organization fit into that?
That's a really good question. When I started talking about the high performance model, I don't know how many years ago, but probably about 5 or 6 years ago, I started talking about it. And at that time, the gospel I was preaching was membership organizations have to run themselves like a business. We are a business, we have to think about things like profit and loss, and we've got to think about what we're delivering. We're charging money for what we're doing, so we better be delivering something that's of value. And at that time, I got a lot of eye rolling, honestly. I mean, I figured that maybe in the audience, maybe 10 to 20% felt like that made sense to them, and the rest of them were, you know what, we're a club. We're nice people, we're soft people, we're fuzzy people. This business stuff, that's nasty. We don't want to be thinking about that. Now it's the other way around. I would say those that aren't on board with the idea that you've got to be a business as a membership organization are now the silent minority. I think there's still people that are out there having trouble going to the business side of the equation, but most of them are definitely on board with that. It's just that many are trying to figure out how to do that, because it's not just about running it as a business. We still have to have that sense of belonging. People want to be part of an organization because there is a sense of belonging, but it has to be more than that. There has to be a value proposition.
Accomplish a good business without losing that membership feel and
Exactly.
part of belonging.
Exactly.
Fabulous. Well, thank you, Erin. I appreciate you taking a few moments out of our leadership conference to fill us in on the High Performance Membership Organization. I've been speaking with Erin Roberts, a partner at Zeem. And if you want more information on this topic, you can go to zeem.com.
You've been listening to Leadership Podcast. To subscribe to this podcast, go to aria.com/leadership.